There's a creature in the ocean so rare that humans went centuries believing it was a myth. Ancient Norse sailors even called it the Kraken and explained it as a monster so enormous that it could swallow ships whole. And honestly, they were not entirely wrong to be afraid of this myth that lives in the deep sea. Now, if you know anything about the deep sea, you know that this creature is real. And it can even grow up to 43 feet long. It also has eyes the size of dinner plates. By all indications, it seems to be the largest of any living animal on Earth. But for its size, it doesn't charge, doesn't chase. It just drifts through total darkness located 1,000 meters below the surface, with 2 feeding tentacles longer than its own body, waiting. And even with its size, scientists were not able to photograph one till 2004. So, how in the world did a creature of this size manage to escape being sighted for years? To fully understand why this creature was not sighted for years, we first need to have a deep understanding of where it lives. The deep sea has 3 major layers: the mesopelagic, twilight, bathypelagic, midnight, and abyssopelagic, abyssal zones. The midnight zone extends 1,000 to 4,000 meters down, and by now you should know that this name is not poetic. It's very literal, because down there no ray of light is found, but the place is not only covered with darkness. The temperature down there holds at a constant 39 degrees Fahrenheit. The pressure also crushes down at over 100 atmospheres, and that is more than enough to collapse anything not built for it. And the silence is almost total. This isn't just some deep patch of water. The midnight zone is actually the single largest habitat on the entire planet, accounting for 70% of all seawater on Earth. Most of it has never been explored. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about what lives down here. And yet, something does live here. A lot of somethings. Strange, patient, impossible things. And the Stygiomedusa gigantea is one of them. Look, I get it. What you are looking at doesn't look normal to you, and that's because it's not. In addition to the creature being one of the rarest creatures ever recorded on this planet, it is one that many people think it should never even exist. Its scientific name, which is Stygiomedusa gigantea, loosely translates from Greek to mean giant jellyfish of the underworld. Yes, you heard that right, the underworld. You may think it's over-exaggeration, but this thing doesn't look like it belongs in our world at all. It looks like something that drifted in from somewhere darker and older. The Stygiomedusa is a jellyfish, a giant jellyfish with a bell. That's the dome-shaped body at the top, over 1 meter wide. Meaning that if you hold your arms wide, the length from your left arm to your right arm is the size of just its head. But it gets stranger. Scientists first pulled one up from the deep in 1899. It was a single specimen, but then they basically forgot about it for 60 years. It wasn't even officially named as its own species until 1959. And since then, the world has evolved a lot, and there have been centuries of ocean exploration, which now involves the use of submersibles, remotely operated vehicles, and thousands upon thousands of deep-sea dives. But even with all these, the Stygiomedusa has only been spotted 118 times. The question that has baffled people for the longest time is how it is possible that this creature that exists in every major ocean on Earth except the Arctic is believed to be widespread and has not been sighted even with the high-powered equipment we have. The answer is not because it's hiding or that it's rare in numbers. It's simply because it lives at depths of up to 6,600 meters, nearly 4 miles below the surface, in a world we barely have the technology to reach. Plus, the sightings of this creature that has been made are only seen in the deep ocean, and that's because almost no light penetrates there. So, in the deep ocean it glows a faint, ghostly orange, but when you go down to where it actually lives, there is no light at all, and it is effectively invisible. A ghost is exactly what it is, and it's been right there beneath us the entire time. But being a ghost is not the only strange thing about this creature. Yes, they have been called jellyfish all their lives, and if there is one thing we know about jellyfish, they sting. That's because they have tentacles laced with venom, coiled and waiting for anything that brushes against them. That's how jellyfish hunt. That's how they've hunted for over 500 million years. But the Stygiomedusa just doesn't do that. In fact, it has no stinging tentacles. All it has are 4 arms. 4 massive, ribbon-like oral arms that flow behind its body like enormous curtains in a slow underwater wind. And these arms can actually grow to over 10 meters long. That's 33 feet. That's roughly the length of a double-decker bus. Now imagine 4 of those being attached to a giant jellyfish. Yep, now you have imagined the Stygiomedusa. But how does it eat without stinging or even chasing anything? To achieve this, the creature takes full advantage of its size. It drifts through the sea, slowly pulsing its giant bell through the midnight zone, and as it does, it keeps its arm wide open and just, well, waits. Because eventually, a prey will drift into those arms, and when it does, the creature wraps its arm inwards and reels it up towards the mouth, which is located at its center. At this point, I don't know if it's a good thing that it doesn't hunt or a bad thing, because even though it's not a predator, it is a living net, one that you cannot avoid. The Stygiomedusa gigantea is most definitely not the friendliest creature in the midnight zone, but it has somehow formed a friendship with an organism that it kind of uses as a slave. That organism is the pelagic brotular Thalassobathia pelagica. It has been observed to live among the arms of the Stygiomedusa. It's constantly darting in and around them and find shelter there. But why doesn't the Stygiomedusa just eat it? Well, the answer lies solely in the fact that these 2 organisms are undergoing the first ever documented symbiotic relationship between a fish and a jellyfish. So while the fish gets protection in a world with almost nowhere to hide, the jellyfish, in return, may get parasite removal. And studies show that when the 2 are separated, the fish finds its way back. It can sense the subtle, low-frequency pulses the jellyfish emits, and it knows where home is. It's really strange how in the darkness of the deep ocean a tiny fish constantly hitches a ride on a silent 33-foot phantom and somehow thinks that this feared creature is the safest place in the entire world. While the pelagic brotular enjoys this protection, other organisms wish they could be awarded the same fate. Because even though the Stygiomedusa gigantea doesn't haunt, it sets a silent trap that almost no animal can escape. Most predators of the ocean give signals before they attack. A shark moves fast, and an anglerfish dangles its bioluminescent lure, which is a tiny but unmistakable invitation. The point is that you already know something is coming before it arrives, but the phantom jellyfish does none of that. It gives no flash of light, no sudden movement, it just, well, moves, or should I say drifts. Those 4 enormous arms, each one up to 10 meters long, trail behind it like the curtains of an abandoned house. And that's its trap. The Stygiomedusa is what you may call an ambush predator in the most extreme sense of the word. It doesn't pursue anything. Instead, its arms function like an enormous passive net, spread wide across the water column, waiting for small fish or plankton to drift into contact. The moment something does, the arms begin to close, but it doesn't just drift and pray that it catches something. sometimes it actually holds on. The first sighting of this was observed in the Gulf of Mexico, when it looked like some of its specimens actively clung to underwater structures. Once scientists saw this, they believed that this may just be the jellyfish anchoring itself to hold prey in place. But it gets stranger, because the Stygiomedusa actually lives in a place where the deep sea forces tiny creatures to become big, and big creatures to become huge. So that enormous bell at the top of its head is not only used for movement. Researchers have stated that its pliant tissue can actually stretch 4 to 5 times its resting size. And honestly, the deep sea produces some very scary-looking creatures, but a creature that can expand 5 times its size is just next level. And at this point, the Stygiomedusa has no other choice than to expand. Because with the little to no life that exists down there, and with the competition to just survive, it needs to expand that way in order to engulf its prey whole. Just imagine something that was the size of a table suddenly becoming the size of the entire room whenever it wants to feed. But we don't fully know, because that's just the thing about the Stygiomedusa that still keeps scientists unsettled. Nobody has ever watched it complete a full hunt. Nobody has seen it really feed, on camera. We've seen the arms, we've seen the drift, we've seen the bell pulse slowly through the black water, glowing a faint orange that no creature at that depth can even perceive. But the moment the arms close, the moment the prey is taken, that part still happens in total darkness, somewhere between 1,000 and 6,000 meters below any light we can reach. And I don't know about you, but the fact that this creature has perfected its hunting and eating in total darkness and silence is very unsettling to me. You may believe it's not unsettling at all, so let's just take a moment and imagine you are inside a remotely operated vehicle. You are thousands of meters below the surface, and the only light in the entire world is the light that your submersible is generating. Everything outside your window is absolutely black, and then, at the edge of that light, something begins to appear. You see the first arms, because of course you do, and then you catch a glimpse of the 4 of them. They are long, ribbon-like, and moving with the kind of slowness that feels strangely deliberate. You watch as these arms trail behind the creature, each one wider than your torso, and each one stretching beyond what your camera can fully frame. And then you see the bell, and it's over 1 meter wide, and it's just pulsing in a rhythmic pattern that gives you goosebumps. And then, in the presence of the ROV's floodlights, it glows a faint, deep crimson color that should feel warm, but it's far from being warm. Because down there at 1,000 meters below the surface, red light doesn't exist naturally, meaning your eyes probably wouldn't see it at all without artificial help. So, since other creatures in that water don't have the same artificial help you do, they see nothing, and the Stygiomedusa gigantea becomes invisible. It's a ghost the size of a bus, hunting in a spectrum no other creature can see. Just imagine it, a creature that has been classified as one of the largest invertebrate predators in the entire deep sea ecosystem. One of the biggest, yet it moves through that ecosystem with no impression at all, no vibration strong enough to detect, no bioluminescent flash to attract attention, and no sound. But honestly, what were we expecting it to be like? After all, the scientists who named it searched for its name in Greek mythology and gave it Stygio, which literally means the boundary between the living world and the underworld. And as if that revelation is not enough, it gets worse, because we don't actually know how many of them exist, meaning that it's probably out there right now in enormous numbers, across millions of square miles of deep water. That uncertainty is just scary. It's worse when you remember that we have only seen it approximately 118 times, and because of how rare it is to us, we don't know much about it. We don't know how it reproduces in the wild. All we know is that it gives live birth, making it the only true jellyfish known to do so. But we've never watched it happen. We've never seen its young in the open ocean. We don't know how long it lives. We don't know what, if anything, hunts it. We don't even fully understand how it feeds. Some of the most fundamental questions you could ask about a living creature remain completely open. And the Stygiomedusa is not the only thing we have no knowledge of, because it is not alone down there. In fact, there could be thousands of creatures worse than this just floating around in the deep ocean, because research has it that scientists have directly observed less than 0.001% of the deep ocean seafloor out of an ocean covering 360 million square kilometers. That's an area roughly equivalent to the size of Rhode Island, so basically, an estimated 91% of all ocean species are still undiscovered or undescribed. Between 700,000 and 1 million species are thought to exist in the ocean, and we've formally identified a fraction of them. Which means the Stygiomedusa gigantea, this enormous, ancient, silent phantom, isn't the end of the story. It might not even be close to the middle of it. There are creatures down there that have never been seen by human eyes, creatures that may be larger, stranger, more impossible than anything we've documented, sitting in the same darkness, in the same silence, in the same pressure that would kill us in seconds, drifting, waiting for us to finally find them.